Listeners, think about the most important leadership lessons. What if they didn't come from a boardroom, from a bestseller, or a business school? What if they came from grief rooms, disaster sites, and moments where the only thing that mattered was showing up with your whole self? Well, today we are going to sit with a guest who has lived those rooms and walked away with something rare. What's that? Clarity. Let's go and explore. So, welcome back, dear listeners, to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I am Sana, your host. And yes, this is the show where we have honest conversations about what it really takes to live well and lead well. And let me introduce my guest to all of you. So, he's a funeral director turned disaster responder turned entrepreneur who was called to testify before the United States Senate on funeral ethics, and whose book, Lead by Legendary Example, is exactly what it sounds like: leadership from the inside out. So, Jay, listeners, let's welcome our guest, Jay Jacobson. Jay, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored having you here.
Sana, it's an honor to be with you. I am excited to spend the next half hour with you and share some insights.
Absolutely. Now, I kind of intuitively, not intuitively, but I personally feel half an hour is not sufficient enough. But still, let's try to extract as much as possible. And Jay, starting with your journey before we get into the big ideas. I mean, this is very interesting. You have worked in spaces most people never enter. Um, I would love to know, our listeners would love to know, what was it about those spaces, emotionally heavy, there's grief, crisis, high pressure, that actually shaped you as a person before they ever shaped you as a leader?
It's interesting because as a funeral director, we live at the junction of families in crisis, families in grief, and making that connection with them and having those critical conversations, having to be fully present and understanding the spoken word as well as the things that are not being said in the room. And so every one
Mm,
of those conversations with a grieving family
mm,
becomes training ground in terms of true presence and really being in the moment, and being there for people in need and in crisis.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, that makes sense, and I think if we take this in the leadership context, I think we talk more around vision, execution, hitting targets, decisiveness. But then, I think your experience, Jay, honestly, it kind of gives a very different perspective, especially towards leadership. But before trying to understand, yeah, go ahead, Jay, go ahead.
We look at leadership from a completely different context than a lot of
Mm,
corporate America. We look at it in terms of the human connection versus the outcomes of corporate America or corporate wherever in the world you are. We look at things like being present and having integrity and understanding the vision of the long game and what we ultimately want to do. We approach it from more of a servant leadership perspective where we're walking alongside those that are helping us obtain our goals and helping us obtain the outcomes for the families we serve. And we're constantly in a need to adapt to what the situation is changing, almost moment by moment. And our lives center a great deal around the phone, and a simple phone call can change everything in just a matter of moments, from what we had planned for the day to what's necessary for the day.
mm, no, that makes sense. That makes
And then
sense.
we look at the development of those leadership skills not a course, but as a lifetime practice. Those are things that are cultivated from a very early on. My first memories are being a paper boy delivering the newspaper early every morning, and the dependability that required, and being up every morning, being ready, getting that paper out
Yeah.
before people had their morning coffee, then getting back and being able to transition and go to school. Uh, those were the earliest lessons that I had in leadership. And then we take that a little bit further that, not only did we deliver the paper in the morning, but then on Thursday evenings, we would have to go back and collect the fee for the subscription. And that process of having to physically meet with my clients, to talk with them, taught me a great deal about presence and being with people when they need to have someone to listen, just to be with them. A great deal of my clients were elderly, and
Yeah.
I'm to this day, I think a lot of the folks that subscribed to the newspaper didn't do it for the news. They did it because they knew every Thursday night someone would stop and visit them, and I might be the only visitor that they'd have all week. But I would take the time to spend a little bit of time with them. Uh, a lot of times it would be they would offer me a piece of pie or a game of cards or something else just to so I would spend a little more time with them and they wouldn't be as lonely.
Yeah. And I think uh, that's kind of it's comforting, and at the same time I feel a sigh of relief because no matter how hard we see the business world out there, when we have people in there, um it's about emotions, admit it or not, it's about emotions, it's about empathy, and it's the way, the tone, your words, how you're communicating, how, I mean, in fact, your body language, because I think that is something many of the business owners, they would probably not consider vital enough to think about, or to kind of learn.
Exactly the right point. Uh, when we start looking at what the workforce in the next 20 to 40 years is going to need, it's going to need people with those personnel skills to be able to connect with others. And we're living in an age when with AI and with the internet, that knowledge is available to anyone. So we don't have to hire people for their ability for knowledge. We need to hire people for their ability to connect with others. And the greatest portion of those skills that people are learning happen between age 13 and 18, when they're looking at adults and trying to figure out their place in the world and trying to understand what it means to be an adult versus a child. That's when they start to learn to read the tone of voice. They learn to read the facial expressions. Learn uh, to read the body language behind what's being said. And now that's exactly the time when we hand these young people a cell phone. So now their world goes from watching adults to watching a tiny screen, and their communication is reduced down to text or emails. And so they lose that opportunity as they're growing to naturally or organically learn that skill of reading people's expressions. Reading is what's not being said in the room as well as what is being said.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. And especially the one that the age uh the age range 13 to 18 kind of are the formative years when we get to learn about all of these special interacting, communicating. I think that is something I actually, honestly, I'll be very frank, Jay, I actually didn't know that, but it absolutely makes sense.
Well, I've done a lot of research because I do a lot of training with new people into the workforce in our industry, and trying to help them understand how to connect with people. And in our profession, we only have about 3 minutes when we sit down with a family to make that connection. And if you don't have those skills to read the body language and the people skills it takes, then you're spending the rest of the time you're working with the grieving family trying to make that connection, and it never quite gels. But if we
Mm.
could teach these young people how to engage, how to really pay attention to what's going on, then they can be successful and they can understand the nonverbal communication as well as the verbal and the written communications they have to process.
Absolutely. And Jay, let's also, I think this is such an important part, because you have spent time in some of the highest pressure environments imaginable, and I personally believe, Jay, sometimes these high pressure moments, they kind of become so much instrumental in shaping our character and the way we think, the way we uh, behave, or the way we react, the way we look at, especially these very sensitive moments. So I would love to know from you, like, it's not just about how you handle pressure, but how what you noticed was happening underneath it in the people around you. Like, what are the deeper patterns that show up in leaders when things are getting actually hard?
Well, imagine you're 28 years old,
Mm,
you're working at a funeral home, you're toward the end of the day, and the phone rings, and you pick up that phone,
mm,
and it's your home office, and they're telling you that they were just contacted by an airline company that, an airline is about to crash near your, city, and
mhm,
that they need you to be in a mindset and to be ready to go and to serve the people. There are about 300 people on board this aircraft, and you know that right now, those 300 people are alive, and very soon, in all likelihood, all 300 people are going to perish. Well, that's exactly what happened to me on a Tuesday afternoon. We were
mm,
just winding down for the day, and I take that phone call, and it changes everything. You start thinking about the lives that are gonna be affected, not only the lives that are gonna be lost, but those survivors back home that have no idea that their world is about to be turned upside down.
mm,
You think about the investigators that are gonna have to come and investigate the crash site. You think about the volunteers that are going to have to step up and help process everything to assist those that are taking care of those who don't make it. And that was a very real scenario that we had. We had a United Flight 232 that crashed in Sioux City, Iowa,
mhm.
and 185 people of that 300 people on board miraculously survived, but we were charged with caring for the other 112 that did not. And so as we arrived on the scene and just watching 150 different funeral directors converge on one area and the leadership that rises to the top, people that have spent their whole lives living in leadership, living the principles of being available and understanding the logistics of the long game, uh, come into that moment and rise to the surface and help get things organized and help get things done in a way that is professional, that's caring, that honors those that didn't make it. To be part of that team and to be part of that leadership that organized and executed the plan to care for those 112 people and return them back to their families was an eye-opening experience. We were in a situation that was completely foreign to all of our normal day-to-day lives. Normally, we have our own facilities. We have running water. We have equipment. We have all the supplies that we need. And all of a sudden, we're having to set up basically a funeral home and embalming suites inside of an airport hangar that has no running water, that has none of the equipment or the supplies that we need, and to secure all of those things and get them on site and find a way to process through, even though we don't have everything we need, was where you see real leadership come to the forefront.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think in those moments, it can be very, very challenging to manage your own emotions because sometimes because you are kind of managing everything in there. You're managing the situation, you are responsible for honoring the souls of the lost lives. You are also managing logistics, you're doing everything. You have a team as well. I think it's kind of the real test of one's character and of course leadership as well.
Yeah, and funeral directors on a daily basis, we step up to that kind of pressure on a smaller scale. We put aside all of our own personal feelings because many times in our hometowns, we're burying our friends, we're burying our neighbors, even family members. And
Mm.
for the moment, when we're sitting with the family and helping them walk through this process, we have to put aside our own grief. We have to wait and grieve privately later, without the benefit of the support system that we're helping the very families create and surround them around, um, to be there when they need support, whether it be through a visitation or a memorial service or a funeral service. Uh, we provide that mechanism. But when it comes to the funeral director, that mechanism isn't there after the fact. We have to process that alone. We have to process it in our own way. And after the air disaster in Sioux City, it changed a lot of us. I came back, I was not able to reengage with, my family, to reengage with my profession, or my community for quite some time. So, I had to process through all of that to get my head back on and be able to step back into life, so to speak. But through my faith, through my family, and through some very good friends, I was able to do that and reengage and reenter into the profession that I love so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really commendable, Jay, honestly. And let's talk about your book as well. Your book, your work, it point toward something you call leading by legendary example. I love that phrase, honestly, Jay, because this is not about perfection, but I think it is something about you actually live. So, what does it look like as a
Well,
daily practice?
one of the pillars that is an essential part of leading is mentorship, and
Mm,
that goes beyond just leading somebody. It's a matter of training their mind, helping them to understand the importance of the work that they do, the importance of the other pillars of integrity and presence and vision, adaptability. Those things are so important. But if you only do it for yourself, if you only do it for the short time that you're engaged in actively leading people, you haven't built a legacy. It
mm,
takes a willingness to impart the wisdom, the knowledge, onto the next generation and to thoughtfully, curate that knowledge so that they become the leaders of tomorrow, and they're equipped with the skills that they need to be leadership legendary leaders themselves. Now the book itself, I never really sat down to write a book when I started it. It was born out of tragedy in itself, in the fact that nearly 2 years ago, my wife went in for a routine surgery that went terribly wrong. And from that time forward, over the next 18 months, we had um, 12 major surgeries, and they had to occur at a specialty hospital 3.5 hours from where we lived. So as the doctors are coming in and explaining what's going on and what the plan is, I started a document for my two daughters, shared documents so they would understand what the doctors are saying. They could be involved in some of the decision making. I started including in some of the rationale behind the decisions we were making and how we were making them. And um, as I got further and further into this document, it became more of a letter to my two grandsons, to help them understand what this kind of crisis decision making looks like, and the essence of the personality traits and the things that you need to have with practiced before you get to that point. And when I got all said and done, it became this book. I was able to get in front of a very good publisher who helped me structure it in such a way that it identified these 6 pillars. It identified how and walked through how we arrived at those pillars and the situations I was put into throughout my life that helped reinforce and help me teach or help me learn those principles. And when we got done, my publisher said, "No, I would like to talk to you about putting a workbook together that will allow teams to have a course of study that they can start building this kind of leadership themselves." And I told him, I said, "I'm willing to do that, but I don't want it to be a standalone book. I want it to be included as part of this book." So, and
Okay.
those who get this book will notice the first 2/3 of it are the stories, the situations that led up to the development of the pillars that we discuss, how those came to be. They're illustrated in ways that are in real life situations that were real life situations lived by me. And then the last third of it is that leadership guide to help you build your own strong teams within your own organizations.
Hmm. No, and I believe that it's not about just doing more, but it's about doing what matters with more intention. And I really connected with what you mentioned to the publisher, that not just a standalone book of workbook, but it has to be included with this. And I think that's a very different kind of leadership overall. If I can talk, I think very different kind of leadership than most of us were taught.
Yes,
And mm,
and healthy leaders have strong vision. They have a strong sense of, what their moral compass is, what
mm,
their values are, and healthy people are have the same, have a very good understanding of who they are, what's important to them, where their hard lines are, what things that they won't cross, what they want to achieve out of life. And that's part of what we help young people do is to help discover that. Help understand, who you are and where you want to go. If you understand that, you can make decisions that drive you toward that. If you have not established that, you're kind of r- driving down the road without GPS or without a map. It'll go
right.
wherever it takes you without purpose.
Absolutely right. Beautiful, beautiful. Jay, so before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to get a hold of your book and they would also like to connect with you, what is the best medium for that?
Well, as far as the book, it's available on Amazon. It's also available on Apple. It's available in 2 formats, either in printed form or in audiobook. If they would like to reach out and learn more about me and my organization, they can visit my website, which is jacobsonprostaff.com, or they can seek me out on LinkedIn or Facebook.
That's great. That's great. And listeners, yes, I'll have all the links mentioned in the show notes. And honestly, listeners, I think this was one of those conversations that doesn't let you off easy. And I think that's exactly what we needed today. And Jay, thank you so, so much I really mean it because, uh, yeah, I mean, this was a very kind of a unique and different conversation, especially when it comes to leadership.
Well, thank you for hosting it.
And yes, thank you, listeners, for being such a wonderful part of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. If something Jay said stayed with you today, sit with it, share it with someone who needed to hear it. And yes, if you haven't yet, subscribe, follow us so you never, never, ever miss a conversation like this one. I'm your host, Sana, and take care of yourselves. We'll talk soon.